A humanoid alien stands on a barren, Earth-like planet. He drinks a black liquid, which disintegrates his body. His DNA falls into the water, seeding life on the planet. Archaeologists Dr. Elizabeth Shaw and Dr. Charlie Holloway discovered ancient cave paintings across the globe depicting a star map. They interpret this as an invitation from the engineers, who they believe created humanity. This discovery led to the launch of the spaceship Prometheus, which was funded by the Wayland Corporation. Peter Wayland. The crew of Prometheus awakens from cryosleep as they approach the distant moon LV-223, the location indicated by the star map. The scene begins with a robotic caretaker android, David, overseeing the waking process. David has been active during the voyage, ensuring the ship and its systems are operational while the human crew hibernates. The effects of long-term cryosleep are apparent. They are disoriented, nauseated, and physically weak. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw and Dr. Charlie Holloway are the lead scientists of the mission. Meredith Vickers is the corporate representative of Wayland Corporation. After the crew is awake and functional, they gather for a mission briefing led by Meredith Vickers and a holographic message from Peter Wayland, the elderly founder of Wayland Corporation. The mission's purpose is explained. They are traveling to a distant moon called LV-223, guided by ancient star maps found in archaeological sites on Earth. These maps suggest the presence of an alien race, the engineers, who might have created humanity. The crew members have mixed feelings about the mission. While Shaw and Holloway are excited and hopeful about meeting humanity's creators, others are skeptical. David continues his duties. He is shown mimicking human behavior and practicing language skills to interpret the engineer's potential language. His calm, emotionless demeanor contrasts with the human's raw emotions and discomfort. Captain Yannick skillfully lands the Prometheus near the structure. The crew marvels at the structure's size and design. The crew suits up in advanced environmental suits with helmets to protect them from the moon's toxic atmosphere. These suits are equipped with cameras, allowing the team on the ship to monitor their progress. Inside the structure, the crew finds a vast network of corridors, walls lined with strange markings, and alien architecture that exudes an advanced and otherworldly design. David begins analyzing the environment and markings, displaying knowledge of the engineer's culture. He interacts with various symbols and controls, hinting that he knows more than he initially reveals. The air inside is surprisingly breathable in certain areas. Holloway, in a reckless display of excitement, removes his helmet, much to Shaw's and Yannick's concern. Eventually, the others follow suit. The team deploys drones called pups, which scan and create a 3D map of the dome. The drones reveal an expansive structure, with hidden rooms and corridors branching off in every direction. The crew discovers the decapitated corpse of an engineer, a massive humanoid being that confirms their theory of the existence of an alien race linked to humanity's origins. As the crew continues exploring, a massive storm system begins to approach the site, forcing them to cut their investigation short. The storm brings high winds and sand, making it dangerous to remain outside for long. The team gathers samples, including the engineer's head, and rushes back to the Prometheus. Two members of the crew, Fifield, a geologist, and Milburn, a biologist, become lost in the corridors while trying to find their way back to the exit. The two are forced to take shelter inside the dome. Shaw and her team bring the engineer's head back to the ship's medical lab, where they begin to study it. Using advanced technology, they discover that the engineer's DNA is a perfect match with human DNA, confirming that the engineers were humanity's creators. However, the head begins to decompose rapidly and ultimately explodes, raising questions about the bioengineered nature of the engineer's biology. Meanwhile, David secretly retrieves a sample of the black goo from the urns they collected. He begins experimenting with it under the orders of Peter Wayland, who remains in stasis aboard the Prometheus. David spikes Holloway's drink with the black goo, testing its effects on humans. Fifield and Milburn become stranded in the dome. They encounter snake-like creatures, hammerpedes, born from the black goo. The creatures attack, killing Milburn and severely mutating Fifield. Holloway begins to feel unwell shortly after being exposed to the black goo. He doesn't immediately realize he has been infected, attributing his discomfort to exhaustion from the mission. Despite his worsening condition, Holloway accompanies the crew on another expedition to the engineered dome. There, his infection progresses, and he becomes visibly weaker. While returning to the Prometheus, Holloway collapses, and the crew realizes something is seriously wrong. His body shows alarming signs of mutation caused by the black goo. As Holloway's condition deteriorates further, Vickers takes drastic action. She sets him on fire with a flamethrower, killing him to prevent the infection from spreading. David operates with a dual agenda. While he assists the crew in their exploration, he is secretly carrying out orders from Peter Wayland, the elderly founder of Wayland Corporation. Wayland's goal is to use David to find a way to contact the engineers and potentially unlock the secret of eternal life. David activates the control panels and triggers a holographic star map. This projection shows the engineers' navigation system, revealing a connection between LV-223 and Earth. The map also indicates that the engineers were planning to travel to Earth, possibly for a destructive purpose. David recognizes that the engineers intended to use their ship as a weapon, carrying the deadly black goo to wipe out humanity. In this room, David finds a holographic recording of the engineers. The hologram shows several engineers rushing through the corridors, activating various controls. David discovers the cryogenic pod containing the sole surviving engineer. He studies the pod and the controls, realizing he has the knowledge to awaken the engineer. Shaw discovers she is pregnant with an alien organism after being exposed to Holloway's infection. Shaw, horrified, demands to have the creature removed, but David dismisses her concerns. Instead, he insists on keeping her under observation, hinting that the pregnancy could provide valuable insights for Wayland's mission. When Shaw becomes increasingly panicked and uncooperative, David administers a sedative injection to subdue her. His intention is to keep her immobilized and prevent her from taking further action to remove the alien fetus. Shaw pretends to succumb to the sedative but manages to fight through its effects, demonstrating her resilience and determination. Shaw escapes from the medical bay despite the effects of the sedative. She makes her way to the automated medpod aboard the ship, where she performs an emergency self-surgery to remove the alien organism. In a harrowing scene, Shaw uses the medpod to extract the creature, which is revealed to be a proto-facehugger-like organism. She successfully seals it inside the medpod, ensuring her survival for the moment. After surviving a harrowing self-surgery to remove an alien organism from her body, Dr. Shaw is physically weak but determined to uncover the truth about the engineers and their connection to humanity. Fifield reaches the hangar bay of the Prometheus, where several crew members are stationed. He immediately launches into a violent assault, killing multiple crew members with his enhanced strength and ferocity. Yannick, the ship's captain, and others use flamethrowers and firearms to subdue him. Despite their efforts, Fifield takes several hits before he is finally killed when a vehicle is dropped on him. Dr. Shaw is summoned to Wayland's quarters, where she finds him awake and surrounded by his team, including David. Wayland reveals his true reason for funding the mission. He believes the engineers hold the key to immortality and sees this as his last chance to cheat death. David hints that he has uncovered the means to awaken the dormant engineer inside the ancient structure. He expresses confidence that the engineer will respond to their questions. This revelation shocks Shaw, as it diverges from her own scientific and existential motivations for the mission. While she seeks answers about humanity's origins, Wayland's quest is selfish and pragmatic. Shaw confronts Wayland, questioning his arrogance and the morality of his pursuit. She emphasizes that the engineer's intentions might not be benevolent, especially after witnessing the destructive potential of the black goo and the engineer's apparent hostility. Wayland dismisses her concerns, blinded by his desire to meet his creators and demand more life. Following the meeting, Wayland, David, and a small team, including Shaw, venture into the dome to awaken the engineer. Shaw reluctantly joins them, determined to witness what unfolds despite her fears. The group is heavily armed for protection. David leads the group to the stasis chamber, where they find a single engineer in suspended animation inside a cryogenic pod. Using his knowledge of the engineer's technology and language, David activates the stasis pod, awakening the engineer from its long slumber. The engineer rises and observes the humans. It appears calm and curious at first, examining Wayland and the others. The group is hopeful for peaceful communication. Wayland arrogantly steps forward and orders David to speak to the engineer. Through David's translation, Wayland demands eternal life, declaring himself as a creation of the engineers who now seek to extend his existence. Dr. Shaw, still distrustful of the engineers, interrupts Wayland and questions their motives. She demands to know why the engineers created humanity and why they later planned to destroy it. Without warning, the engineer attacks the group. It decapitates David, ripping his head from his body, and strikes down Wayland and his security team with brutal efficiency. The engineer's hostility confirms Shaw's fears that it harbors no benevolence toward humanity. Wayland, mortally wounded, is left to die in the stasis chamber. As he succumbs to his injuries, he realizes his quest for immortality has failed, his arrogance ultimately leading to his downfall. Shaw manages to escape the chamber amidst the chaos. She barely avoids the engineer's wrath as it moves to activate its ship. The engineer proceeds to the ship's control room, preparing to launch it toward Earth. It intends to deliver the black goo bioweapon to humanity, eradicating life on Earth. Shaw realizes the gravity of the situation and becomes determined to stop the engineer from completing its mission. She contacts Captain Yanek on the Prometheus, urging him to prevent the engineer's ship from launching. Understanding the stakes, Captain Yanek decides to sacrifice the Prometheus to stop the engineer's ship. He informs his co-pilots, Chance and Ravel, of his plan. The three men heroically agree to the suicidal mission. She uses an escape pod to eject from the Prometheus moments before the collision. With the help of his crew, Yanek pilots the Prometheus into the engineer's ship, successfully disabling it mid-launch. The resulting collision destroys both ships and sends the wreckage crashing to the surface of the planet. Vickers survives the collision thanks to the escape pod but lands in the path of the falling engineer ship. The massive, circular engineer ship crashes to the ground and begins to roll, creating a giant path of destruction. Vickers runs desperately to escape the ship's trajectory. However, despite her efforts, she cannot outrun its size and speed, marking her tragic and sudden death. The Prometheus crew sacrifices their lives to save humanity. Despite the destruction of its ship, the engineer survives the crash and emerges from the wreckage, intent on continuing its mission. The engineer heads toward the lifeboat module, where Shaw has taken refuge. Inside the lifeboat module, Shaw encounters the alien creature she surgically removed earlier, which has since grown to a massive size. This creature is later referred to as a proto-facehugger or trilobite. The engineer attacks Shaw inside the lifeboat, but she releases the trilobite, which overwhelms and subdues the engineer. The creature wraps itself around the engineer and implants an embryo inside it, effectively neutralizing the immediate threat. Despite being decapitated, David's head remains operational. Despite his earlier manipulations, Shaw decides to trust David, as he has knowledge of the engineer's technology. Using David's guidance, Shaw activates another engineer ship. Instead of returning to Earth, she decides to search for the engineer's homeworld to find answers about why they created and later sought to destroy humanity. In the aftermath of the engineer's death, the trilobite's implanted embryo grows inside the engineer's body. In the final moments, an alien creature, referred to as the Deacon, bursts from the engineer's chest. This creature is a precursor to the iconic xenomorphs seen in the Alien franchise, symbolizing the origins of the deadly species. If you enjoyed diving deep into the story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated.